Hi, my name is Alex, and I live in the United States now. I can think in two languages, but for a long time it felt like only one of them dared to show up when I needed it. In my head, the words marched in order, smart and shiny. The moment I opened my mouth in English, though, they panicked, dropped their helmets, and ran away. People call it going blank. That sounds clean. The truth is messier. It's heat in the face, a dry mouth, a buzzing in your ears like a mosquito that won't leave you alone. It's a small theater inside your chest where your heart does a loud rehearsal and forgets to close the curtains. The first time I noticed how serious it was, I was at a coffee shop near my apartment. The place smelled like cinnamon and new wood, and the line was full of students with earbuds and shiny laptops. I had already rehearsed my order out loud in the car. "Hi, can I please get a medium latte with oat milk?" Simple, polite, perfect. In my mind, I had even practiced the cashier's possible responses and my possible answers, like a little chess game only I could see. I stepped up to the counter. "Hey, what can I get started for you?" the barista asked, smiling. The sentence landed in my ears and slid off. My brain had apparently left the building to look for parking. I smiled back, nodded, and said, Yes, I, latte, medium, oat, milk, please." It came out like a radio, picking up 3 stations at once. The barista waited, gentle, but I could feel the people behind me shifting, and my throat turned into a fist. "Take your time," the barista said, and I wanted to hug him and also vanish under the pastry case. I finally pointed at the menu. He nodded, wrote it down, and said, "You're all good." But I didn't feel good. I carried my latte to a corner table and pretended to check email, while my brain scolded me for being an adult who could discuss complex ideas, in my own language, I swear, and yet couldn't order a drink in English without sounding like I'd just invented my tongue. Here's what I learned later. Blanking isn't proof that you don't know English. It's proof that your brain is human. When we feel judged, rushed, or afraid, our working memory shrinks. It's like trying to cook a big meal on a tiny stove. You can still do it, but only if you lower the heat and work one pan at a time. I didn't know that yet. I thought I was just broken. At my new job at a warehouse in New Jersey, the morning meetings were short and casual. Everyone stood in a loose circle smelling like fresh cardboard and coffee, and the supervisor, Mason, ran through assignments. The first week, he said, "Let's go around. Say your name and what you're working on." I could have done this in my sleep. When my turn came, my sleep apparently hit snooze. I'm Alex." It was like my own name had to pass through customs. Today I will, the inbound, I checked the pallet." "Receiving pallets?" Mason offered. "Yes, that," I said. Every eye on me was kind, or at least indifferent, but I felt like a spotlight had found me and the rest of the room went dark. Afterward, a co-worker named Jenna patted my shoulder and said, "You're fine. First week jitters." I nodded like that was the explanation. It wasn't. This happened even when I was alone with one person, even when I knew what to say, even when the person smiled and said, "Take your time." My body didn't believe them. That night, I called my cousin in Texas, who had moved to the U.S. before me and already sounded comfortable in English. I told him everything. Your mind goes blank because your body thinks it's under attack, he said. You're not missing words, you're missing air. Air? I asked. Yeah, he said. Breathe first, talk second. Try this. Inhale through your nose for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 4, then say one sentence only. Not your life story, just one sentence. He made it sound like a trick, and I was hungry for tricks. So I practiced. In the bathroom mirror, before work, on walks, in the grocery store aisle with cereal boxes staring at me like a silent audience, I would breathe and say one sentence out loud. I kept them small and useful. Hi, can I ask you something? Sorry, can you please repeat that? I need a minute to think. Please give me a moment. They were not poetry. They were handles I could grab when the floor felt slippery. The next week, I tested one. At the deli counter, the woman behind the case asked what I wanted. Fog rolled in behind my eyes. I did the breath, quietly, so I didn't look like I was blowing out birthday candles, and then said, "Can you give me a minute, please?" She nodded like it was the most natural request in the world. The fog thinned. I pointed to the turkey, then found the words. 1/2 pound of roasted turkey, thin slice. I even remembered the please. When she handed me the paper-wrapped package, it felt like more than lunch. But the real test came with phone calls. In person, I could point or gesture or smile. On the phone, all I had were words, and the words were shy. The sink in my apartment started to leak. I had to call maintenance. I wrote a script in my notebook. Hello, this is Alex from apartment 5B. My kitchen sink is leaking. Water is under the cabinet. Could someone come to fix it? My phone number is... I rehearsed it until it sounded like I was reading a prayer. Then I dialed. The office picked up with a fast greeting I barely caught. My script went running into the woods. I found a handle. Hi, can I ask you something? I said. Sure, the voice said, patient. I inhaled, held, exhaled, and then read my script. Slowly, clearly. My voice shook a little, but it stayed. The woman on the phone took my information and said someone would come by in the afternoon. I wrote down the time and thanked her. When I hung up, I realized my shirt had damp half-moons under the arms. My body thought I'd run a race. Maybe I had. I felt the finish line joy anyway. At work, I experimented more. I started to carry a small stack of sticky notes in my back pocket with little phrases that were like friendly tools. When I needed them, I'd touch the notes to remind myself they existed. Let me check my words. 1 second, I'm thinking. Can you say that slower? I know it in my first language. I'm finding the English. People reacted in 2 ways, helpful or curious. Helpful was perfect. Curious wasn't bad either. Jenna asked one day at lunch, "Do you practice sentences?" "Yeah," I said, relieved she didn't think it was weird. "I can say anything in my head. Speaking is the hard part." Jenna nodded. When I learned to skateboard, my body knew what to do, but my brain panicked. I had to practice falling. She laughed. "Maybe you need to practice blanking." I stared at her. Practice blanking. What a strange, brilliant idea. It sounded like learning to surf by getting used to the wipeout. That night, I stood in my living room, set a timer on my phone, just to keep me honest, and practiced freezing on purpose. I would begin a sentence, stop halfway, close my eyes, breathe, and continue. I would like to pause, ask about the breathe delivery window. Could you please pause, repeat the last part? I'm sorry, my brain pause, went blank, one moment. When I opened my eyes, I felt ridiculous and also powerful. If I could pretend to blank, then blanking was not a monster outside me. It was a thing I could step into and out of. It was a hallway with a light switch. I could learn where it was. I signed up for an evening conversation class at the community college. The classroom smelled like dry erase markers and determination. People from everywhere showed up with the same story told in different accents. In my head, I know. In my mouth, I don't. Our teacher, Ms. Rivera, understood the science and the feelings. On day one, she said, "You are not broken. You are overloaded. We will make your load lighter and your path clearer." She showed us how to chunk speech. Instead of thinking in perfect sentences, think in small blocks. If a sentence is a full staircase, a chunk is one step. She gave us the most useful chunks, the kind you can plug into many situations. I'm not sure about that part. From my point of view, here's how I see it. Let me try again. Give me a second to organize this. Then she made us play a game. Two students paired up. One told a story while the other interrupted gently every 30 seconds with, "Can you explain that?" or "Can you say that another way?" The storyteller had to respond using a chunk. It was like lifting weights for the part of the brain that keeps the door open when a draft tries to slam it. I paired with a quiet guy named Omar who worked nights at a bakery. He told me about making sourdough. I interrupted with, "Can you say that another way?" His face went blank for a blink, then he used a chunk. "Let me try again." He smiled, kept going. When it was my turn, I told him about calling maintenance for the sink. He interrupted me mid-sentence. I used, "Give me a second to organize this." And I actually paused, organized, and continued. Nobody in the world outside that room had ever given me permission to pause and organize. I realized I could give that permission to myself anywhere. One rainy Saturday, I walked into a bookstore and found a small group gathered in the back with a sign, "Toastmasters, guests welcome." I had heard about it. People practice public speaking in a friendly way. The idea terrified me, and because it terrified me, I kept walking, then turned around and joined them. The leader, an older man with kind eyes, explained how it worked. People gave short speeches, got feedback, celebrated small victories, filler words reduced, eyes lifted, gestures intentional. When it was time for impromptu questions, they let me try one. The question, "What's your favorite place to relax?" My mind did that old vanishing act. The leader waited. The room was patient in a way that felt like a soft chair. I did the breath. I grabbed a chunk. "Give me a second to organize this." Then I talked about a park near my apartment with a pond and noisy ducks, and a bench that wobbles a little but faces the best tree. I talked for a full minute. When I finished, people clapped as if I had done something brave and not barely managed to keep a sentence alive. Maybe those were the same thing. I started to see patterns. The blankness arrived in predictable places. The beginning of a conversation, right after someone interrupted me, when a stranger used a phrase I didn't expect, when I felt watched or judged, on the phone, in meetings, at any counter with a line. Each situation needed a small plan. At counters with lines, I practiced buying time phrases that were honest and short. 1 second, please. Let me check. Can I look at the menu for a moment? In meetings, I wrote down 3 bullet points before I spoke. If my mind tried to run away, my eyes could grab the list like a rope. At the start of any conversation, I used predictable openings to warm up my mouth, like stretches before a run. Hi, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you. I have a quick question. I might need help with this. On the phone, I began with a request that slowed the other person down without making them feel blamed. Hi, my name is Alex. English is my second language. Can you please speak a little slower? Almost everyone said yes. Some people even said, of course, and please tell me if I go too fast. The blank hallway in my brain got brighter. I learned that strangers wanted me to succeed more than my anxiety wanted me to fail. The hardest environment turned out to be something I didn't expect. Jokes. At lunch, co-workers traded quick, funny comments that depended on timing, references, and tiny tone changes. I often got the joke 2 beats late. By then, the moment had dissolved. It felt like arriving at the bus stop and watching the bus drive away. One afternoon, Jenna told a story about her dog stealing a sandwich, and everyone laughed. And I had a good line. Really, it was clever. But the timing vanished while my brain translated a verb. The moment sailed on without me. That evening I talked to Miss Rivera about it. Humor is a sport, she said. Timing is part of the skill. For now, play a different sport during those moments. Be the good listener. Laugh. Add one small comment that doesn't require timing. For example, that's so typical dog behavior. Or ask a question that keeps the story alive. Did he at least leave you a bite? You are still part of the scene. I tried that. It worked. Instead of chasing the exact right sentence, I stayed present with the imperfect one I could say now. The more I did that, the more the fear shrank. Ironically, the less afraid I was, the more my timing improved. My brain stopped wasting fuel on defense and had energy for play. A month later, Mason asked for a volunteer to share an idea to make the receiving area more efficient. I had an idea about labeling pallets with a color code and a short note. I wrote it down, took a breath, and raised my hand. When I stood up, the old blankness knocked on the door. I didn't let it in. I used my plan. I started with a chunk. Here's how I see it, I said. Our labels are clear, but they're small. If we add color strips, red, blue, green, we can spot the priority pallets from far away. Also, we can put a short line like fragile, top load, right under the barcode. It saves steps, and steps are time. It wasn't fancy. It was fine. The team asked questions. I used my other chunks. Let me try again when I said something messy. From my point of view, when I needed to soften a disagreement. Mason nodded. Let's test it this week, he said. The trial worked. We kept it. I wrote a note in my phone that night. Spoken meeting. Did not die. I still had setbacks. I went to the DMV to renew my state ID, and the clerk asked a question in a flat voice while typing fast, and my brain threw its papers in the air. I used, "I'm sorry, can you repeat that?" She repeated it at the same speed. I used, "Slower, please." She slowed down. I answered, and we moved on. I left the building sweaty but proud. The world didn't care if I asked for help. It actually became easier when I did. Sometimes I caught myself apologizing for everything. Sorry, my English is bad. Ms. Rivera warned us about this habit. Don't apologize for existing, she said. You can acknowledge difficulty without insulting yourself. Try, I'm still learning. Thanks for your patience. That sentence felt like a little bridge I could carry in my pocket and drop over awkward water. I built a toolbox and carried it everywhere. A breath, inhale, hold, exhale. A handful of chunks to start, pause, restart. A tiny notebook with bullet points. A courage to ask, "Can you say that slower?" A refusal to apologize for learning, and a new belief. Silence can be part of speaking. A pause is not a failure. It's punctuation. One evening after class, I stopped at the same coffee shop where my tongue had once staged a coup. The same barista, same gentle smile, asked what he could get started. I didn't rehearse this time. I didn't need to. "Hi," I said. "Can I please get a medium latte with oat milk?" He rang it up, and I waited. Behind me, someone in line was chatting with a friend about an exam. The espresso machine hissed like it was applauding. My heart stayed calm. I sat at the same corner table and opened a book. A woman at the next table sighed and muttered, "I hate speaking in class." My mind goes blank. The sentence crossed the space between us like a small boat. I set down my cup and turned slightly. "Me too," I said. Or, "I used to. Sometimes still. But I found some things that help." She looked up, curious. "Like what?" "Like, if I freeze, I say, 'Give me a second to organize this,' and then I actually take the second. Or I ask the other person to speak slower. Or I keep little starter phrases in my head so I don't have to invent an opening sentence." "That sounds possible," she said, smiling. "I always feel like I have to talk fast or people will get bored." "I felt that too," I said. "But people like clear more than fast." We talked for a few minutes about fear, about learning, about how brave it feels to ask for water when your brain is on fire. When she left, she said, "Thanks. I'm going to try that organized line." "Good luck," I said. "It works." I wish I could tell you that my mind never goes blank anymore. It still does sometimes when I'm tired or startled, or when someone asks me something super specific and my brain chooses that moment to wander off and look at clouds. But now, I treat the blankness like a neighborhood I know. The streets, the shortcuts, the friendly houses with porch lights. I don't get lost there. I don't blame myself for visiting. I walk through, use my tools, and come out on the other side with words that may not be perfect, but are mine. The other day at work, a new hire named Luis joined our team. On his second morning, Mason did the circle thing, names and tasks. When it got to Luis, he froze. I recognized the look. His face said, "I know what to say, but the words are behind glass." I caught his eye and gave him a slow nod, like a hand on a shoulder. He took a tiny breath. "Hi," he said. "I'm Luis." He paused, then added, "Give me a second to organize this." The room waited. He smiled, continued, "I'll be an outbound today, helping with tracking numbers." Clear, simple, done. After the meeting, he came up to me. "Thanks," he said. "I saw you nod." "I know that feeling," I said. "You did great." He exhaled a laugh that sounded like relief. "My mind goes blank sometimes," he said. "Mine too," I said. "I carry a little toolbox for it." "What's in it?" "A breath for courage, a sentence to start, another sentence to restart, a reminder that pauses are legal, and the fact that most people want to help." He nodded, like a student who has just learned where the light switch is. "I'll build that toolbox too." We went back to work, and the warehouse sounded like a city. Forklifts beeping, tape ripping, footsteps on concrete. My words moved in the right direction, one small block at a time, not because the fear was gone, but because I knew what to do when it arrived. That knowledge felt like an address I could always return to. On Sunday, I called home and told my mother how life was going. "Are you speaking more?" she asked. "I am," I said. "I still get nervous, but I don't disappear anymore." "Good," she said. "Your voice is a good one. It deserves company." I hung up and went for a walk. The sky over the neighborhood was a soft blue. Laundry flapped on a balcony like flags from a tiny parade. And somewhere a dog was practicing stand-up comedy with barks. I rehearsed nothing and everything as I walked, just letting English sit beside me without filling every silence. When I got back, I sent a message to our class group chat. "What's one chunk that saved you this week?" The replies came fast and warm. "Let me try again." "From my point of view, can you please speak slower?" The last one made me smile. It was the simplest sentence. It was power. It was an invitation to meet in the middle. That's all speaking is, meeting in the middle. Some days my words run to the middle like they were born there. Some days they walk. Some days we take the breath. We touch the sticky note in our pocket. We say, "Give me a second," and we arrive anyway. A few months later, something unexpected happened. My supervisor, Mason, pulled me aside one afternoon and said, "Alex, you've been doing really solid work. I was wondering if you'd be interested in helping train some of the new hires." I blinked. Train? As in, explain things? To people? In English? Out loud? "Me?" I asked, pointing at myself like maybe there was another Alex standing nearby. "Yeah, you," Mason chuckled. "You're patient, you explain clearly, and people listen to you. You don't rush." I swallowed. In my head, alarms were going off. What if I blank? What if I forget the words? What if they laugh? But then another thought slipped in quietly, like a friend sitting beside me. "You have tools now." So I nodded. "Yes, I can do that." That night, I barely slept. My stomach flipped like a washing machine. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and rehearsed how I might explain things. This pallet goes here. Check the labels. Scan the barcode. I chunked the sentences into little steps. I even wrote some on sticky notes and carried them in my pocket like safety nets. The next morning, I met two new hires, Luis, the guy I'd nodded at before, and a young woman named Taylor. They looked nervous in the way I used to, eyes darting, lips pressed like they were carrying too many thoughts at once. "Hi," I said, smiling. "I'm Alex. I'll help you today." Luis relaxed instantly. Taylor gave a small nod. I started with the easiest thing, walking them through the warehouse, showing where things belonged. My words weren't perfect, but they came. When I got stuck, I used my chunk. "Give me a second to organize this." Then I slowed down and said it another way. And you know what? They didn't mind. They listened, nodded, and followed. Halfway through, Luis whispered, "Your English is good." I laughed. It wasn't before. I used to blank all the time. "Me too," he admitted. "Still happens sometimes," I said, "but it doesn't stop me anymore." That moment felt bigger than the warehouse. It felt like a circle closing. I had been the one freezing and fumbling, and now I was the one showing someone else that fumbling was not the end of the world. Later that week, I told Ms. Rivera about it. She smiled and said something I'll never forget. "Confidence isn't speaking without mistakes. Confidence is speaking even while mistakes are happening." I carried that line everywhere. Outside of work, life kept testing me. At the grocery store, a stranger asked, "Excuse me, do you know if this bread is gluten-free?" And for a split second, my brain tried to run away. But instead of panicking, I used the pause. "I'm not sure," I said. "But maybe the label can tell us." Together, we flipped the package, read the fine print, and solved it. I walked away grinning like I'd just won the lottery, because sometimes small talk feels bigger than winning money. Even on the phone, I started to feel different. One day I had to call my internet company because my Wi-Fi kept cutting out. Normally, that kind of call would turn me into a puddle. The customer service rep spoke fast, throwing terms like modem reset and service outage in your area. My mind tried to blank, but I reached into my toolbox. "Sorry, could you repeat that a little slower?" I asked. She did. I caught it the second time. We went step by step, and by the end, my internet was working. When she said, "Thanks for your patience," I almost laughed out loud. Me? Patient? For years, patience had been the thing I begged from other people. Now someone saw it in me. The changes weren't magic. Some days, English still felt like walking through fog. At lunch with coworkers, I sometimes lost track of the fast jokes. At restaurants, I still stumbled if the waiter asked me a question I hadn't prepared for. Once, I ordered chicken soup, and somehow my brain made me say chicken soap. The waiter blinked, then chuckled kindly. I corrected myself, and we both laughed. The old me would have burned with shame. The new me just shrugged. So what? Laughter was lighter than silence. The biggest surprise came when Jenna invited me to a barbecue at her house. Her family was there. Parents, cousins, neighbors. Normally, social gatherings made me sweat more than summer heat. But I reminded myself, breathe, chunk, one sentence at a time. When someone asked, "So, Alex, where are you from originally?" I didn't freeze. I smiled and said, "I grew up abroad, but now I'm here in the US working at the warehouse." Another person asked, "What do you like to do outside of work?" I could have gone blank. Instead, I said, "I like reading and walking in the park. Sometimes I go to a bookstore. I'm also trying to cook new dishes." It wasn't fancy. It was enough. And soon, I found myself laughing, eating grilled corn, and actually enjoying the evening. Walking home that night, I thought about something important. Maybe going blank wasn't my enemy after all. Maybe it was just my brain's way of saying, "Slow down. Give me space." And maybe the real skill wasn't avoiding blankness, but learning how to walk through it calmly and keep going. Over time, English stopped feeling like a battlefield. It started to feel like a road I knew well, sometimes crowded, sometimes bumpy, but always moving forward. And the blank moments, they became just small pauses on the journey, like red lights at an intersection. You wait, you breathe, the light changes, and you keep driving. After that barbecue, I started to reflect on what had really helped me. I realized that going blank when speaking English wasn't a permanent weakness. It was just a signal from my body. It was like my brain was yelling, "Too much, too fast, slow down." Once I understood that, I began to build little systems that worked like safety nets. Here are some of the things I practiced, things I still use today. 1. The power of breathing. You might think breathing is automatic. Of course it is. But when we're nervous, our breathing changes. We hold our breath, or breathe shallow and fast, and that steals oxygen from the brain. That's why our mind feels foggy or blank. So I made a rule. Before I speak, I breathe. Inhale through the nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 2 seconds. Exhale through the mouth for 4 seconds. It feels slow, but it's powerful. That one cycle calms your nervous system and gives your brain a moment to collect words. I practiced this everywhere. In the car before work, while waiting in line, even in the bathroom before meetings. At first, it felt silly, but soon it became automatic. If I could give only one tip for anyone whose mind goes blank, it would be this: make space for your breath. 2. Chunking. Instead of full sentences. When I first started speaking, I tried to build perfect, complete sentences. But perfection is heavy. It makes you freeze. Instead, I learned to speak in chunks, small, clear blocks of language. For example, "Excuse me, I was wondering if you could possibly tell me where the closest pharmacy is located." Excuse me, closest pharmacy? Where is it? Both are polite. Both communicate. But the second one is easier to say under pressure. I started practicing chunks like, "I'm not sure. Let me think. 1 second. Here's how I see it. Can you explain that again?" When I blanked, instead of silence, I grabbed a chunk. That small block kept the conversation alive until my mind caught up. 3. Buy time without fear. Blankness often comes from pressure, the feeling that you must respond instantly. But here's the truth. Native speakers pause all the time. They say, you know, let me see. So I trained myself to use time-buying phrases. Good question. Let me organize my thoughts. Give me a moment. That's interesting. I tested this in meetings. If Mason asked me, Alex, what do you think about this process? My brain screamed, say something now. Instead of panicking, I said, that's interesting. Give me a moment to organize my thoughts. Nobody rushed me. Nobody laughed. They just nodded, waiting. That pause gave me room to breathe and build my answer. 4. Scripts for common situations. I realized that 80% of my blank moments came in predictable places: ordering food, answering the phone, introducing myself, asking for help. So I wrote tiny scripts for each one and practiced them until they felt natural. Examples: phone call. Script: Hi, my name is Alex. I'm calling about internet bill appointment repair. Could you please help me with that? Restaurant script: Hi, can I get food item with drink, please? If it's not available, can you recommend something? Meeting script: From my point of view, simple opinion. I think option A works better because reason. Small talk. Script: How's your day going? What do you usually do on weekends? By rehearsing these, I gave my brain shortcuts. Even if I blanked, my scripts were like little roads I could walk down without thinking too hard. 5. The practice blanking trick. This one came from Jenna's joke about practicing falling off a skateboard. I literally practiced going blank on purpose. At home, I would start a sentence, pause halfway, and then use a chunk to recover. Example: I'd like to pause, ask about the new schedule. Could you pause, repeat the last part? At first I felt ridiculous, but then when real blank moments happened, my body already knew what to do. It wasn't panic anymore. It was rehearsal. 6. Record yourself talking. One of the scariest but most helpful things I did was recording myself. I would set up my phone, pick a simple topic, my favorite food, a memory from childhood, what I did today, and talk for 2 minutes. Then I'd listen. At first, I hated hearing my voice. I only heard mistakes. But then I started noticing progress. My pauses got shorter, my chunks smoother, my confidence higher. Listening also helped me catch small errors that I didn't notice while speaking. The key here is record, listen, but don't punish yourself. Treat it like checking the mirror before leaving the house. You're just adjusting, not criticizing. 7. Think in English daily blankness happens because the brain tries to translate. The moment you translate, there's a delay, and fear lives in that delay. So I trained myself to think in English. Not all day, that's impossible at first, but in small ways. While cooking, cut onions, heat pan, add oil. While walking, red car, big tree, 2 kids playing. While shopping, I need milk. Which brand? This one is cheaper. At first, it felt robotic, but slowly English became my automatic voice for daily life. And when I spoke to real people, my brain didn't have to scramble for words. They were already warmed up. 8. Celebrate small wins. For years, I only noticed my failures. Every blank moment felt like proof that I wasn't good enough. But then I learned to flip it. Celebrate every small success. I ordered coffee without panic. Win. I asked a stranger for directions. Win. I explained something at work, even if messy. Win. I started writing these in a notebook every night. Just one line. Today I said, over time, those lines stacked into pages of proof that I was improving. Confidence doesn't come from big victories, it comes from noticing the small ones. 9. Don't apologize for learning. This was a hard habit to break. I used to say, "Sorry, my English is bad," almost every time I spoke. But Ms. Rivera taught me, apologizing makes people focus on the mistake, not the message. Instead, I switched to, "I'm still learning. Thanks for your patience." English is my second language, so sometimes I need a moment. That simple shift changed everything. People became more supportive, and I stopped beating myself up. 10. Remember, people want you to succeed. This might be the most important truth. For a long time, I believed everyone was judging me, but the more I practiced, the more I saw the opposite. People want you to succeed. The barista who waits patiently, the co-worker who helps you with a word, the stranger who repeats themselves slowly when you ask. Most people are kind. They don't care if your grammar is perfect. They care if they understand you and if you're trying. That realization took away half my fear. After months of using these tips, something amazing happened. English conversations that once felt like battles started to feel like dances. Sometimes I stepped on my own feet, sure, but the music kept going and people kept dancing with me. Blank moments still came, but they no longer scared me. Instead of falling into silence, I reached into my toolbox. Breathe, chunk, buy time, recover. And slowly, I realized that fluency isn't about never blanking. It's about not letting blankness stop you. The real problem: why does your mind go blank? Before giving more tricks, we need to understand why this happens. Fear of mistakes. You are scared people will laugh at you, so your brain freezes. Overthinking grammar. You are thinking about rules, tenses, sentence order, instead of speaking naturally. Vocabulary gap. You know the words, but when it's time to use them, your brain forgets. Lack of real practice. Reading and writing don't always help speaking. Speaking needs a different type of practice. Pressure situations, like job interviews, presentations, or meeting strangers. The pressure shuts your brain down. Now that we know the causes, let's go step by step with solutions. Trick 1. Use connector words to keep talking. Even if your brain forgets vocabulary, you can use simple connector words to keep the conversation alive. These words give your brain extra time to think. For example, well, you know, actually, so basically, I mean, let me think. Example, someone asks, "What do you like about living in the USA?" Instead of going blank, say, "Well, you know, I really enjoy the fact that, actually, I mean, people are friendly here." These little words are like lifeboats for your brain. They buy you time and stop silence from feeling awkward. Trick 2. Train your default sentences. Many times people go blank because they don't have ready-to-use sentences. So prepare some default sentences for common situations. For example, greeting, "Hey, How's it going? If you don't understand, sorry, could you say that again? When thinking, that's a good question. Let me think for a second. Small talk. The weather's been nice lately, hasn't it? Ending a chat. Anyway, it was nice talking to you. These sentences reduce panic. Instead of thinking from zero, you already have words to use. Trick 3. Stop translating in your head. One big reason your mind goes blank. You're trying to translate from your native language to English. That process is slow, and by the time you find words, the conversation has already moved on. Solution. Train your brain to think directly in English. How? When you see something, name it in English. Car, building, tree, dog. When you feel something, express it in English. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm excited. When you plan something, say it in English. I will cook rice today. I need to buy milk. The more you do this, the faster your brain becomes. Trick 4. Shadowing practice. This is one of the most powerful exercises. Here's how it works. Take a short video, YouTube, movies, podcasts, in English. Play 1 to 2 sentences. Pause and repeat exactly like the speaker. Copy pronunciation, speed, and rhythm. Keep doing it until you sound close to the original. This improves fluency because your mouth and brain learn English patterns automatically. Trick 5. Practice thinking aloud. When you're alone, talk to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing. In the kitchen. Okay, I'm cutting vegetables. Now I'm adding salt. This smells good. While walking. The weather feels nice. I see kids playing. I think I'll grab a coffee. Before sleeping. Today was busy. I met my friend. We went to the mall. Tomorrow I'll study. This removes the fear of mistakes and builds confidence. Trick 6. Use the 3-second rule. When someone asks you a question, don't wait too long. If you wait too much, your brain panics and goes blank. Instead, take 2 to 3 seconds. Start speaking something simple. Then continue building. Example. Question. What do you do on weekends? Answer with 3-second rule. Usually I relax. I like watching movies. Sometimes I go shopping. Even if it's simple, you're speaking confidently. Trick 7. Record yourself. Take your phone, record yourself talking about a topic for 2 to 3 minutes. Listen carefully. Notice where you pause too much or forget words. Try again. This works like a mirror. You can see your mistakes and fix them. Trick 8. Reduce pressure. It's okay to be imperfect. Remember, even native speakers pause, say, or forget words. Fluency doesn't mean perfect grammar. It means communication without freezing. Example, native speakers say, I was like, maybe we should go? They're not perfect, but they're fluent. You can be the same. Trick 9. Storytelling practice. Instead of just answering questions, practice telling stories. Stories are natural, and people enjoy listening. How to practice. Pick a simple memory. My first day in college, my last vacation, the funniest thing that happened to me. Tell it in English, step by step. Use feelings. I was nervous. I felt happy. I laughed so much. Storytelling makes speaking interesting and gives you practice with longer sentences. Trick 10. Daily mini conversations. Don't wait for big practice sessions. Use English daily in small ways. At the store, "Hi, can I get this, please?" At Starbucks, "I'd like a medium latte, thank you." With neighbors, "Nice day today." Small practice builds big confidence. Trick 11. Visualization technique. Before a real conversation, close your eyes and imagine you are confident. You are speaking clearly. The other person is smiling and listening. This mental practice reduces nervousness in real life. Trick 12. Vocabulary in context. Don't just memorize single words. Learn them in phrases. Instead of learning improve, learn improve my English, improve quickly. Instead of confident, learn feel confident, sound confident. That way, when you speak, the whole phrase comes out automatically. No blank mind. Final mindset. Progress, not perfection. Fluency is not about speaking without mistakes. It's about not stopping when mistakes happen. If you forget a word, describe it. The thing you use for cutting paper. Scissors. If you make grammar mistakes, ignore them and keep talking. People care about your ideas, not your grammar. If your brain goes blank, use fillers. Well, let me think. Every conversation is practice. Every mistake is learning.